Acts 15. Well, we read in Acts 15 of an argument between Paul and Barnabas. Paul said to Barnabas, "Let's return now and visit the believers in every city where we proclaimed the word of the Lord and see how they fare." Barnabas wanted to take with them John also, who was called Mark, but Paul thought best not to take with them John Mark, the one who had withdrawn from them in Pamphylia and had not gone with them to the work. They had such a sharp disagreement that they parted company. Barnabas took Mark with him and sailed off to Cyprus. Paul chose Silas, and he departed elsewhere. Now, at the very end of his life, Paul asked Timothy to bring Mark with him to visit Paul in prison. And he mentions that Mark is a useful and good brother. So I think this sin, because that's what it was, weighed upon the conscience of Paul right up to the end of his life. Well, you see here that Christians aren't perfect. Even great Christian men like Paul made mistakes. They misjudged people and, well, they sinned. You need to remember that because so many Christians give up with Christianity once they encounter division and failure amongst churches or amongst other Christians. Whether or not the church is functional or not, our faith must be in the person of Jesus. If we have a personal and a secure relationship with him, which is what being a Christian is all about, then the failures of others will not affect that relationship with Jesus. And this leads me to observe that the Bible is really a series of biographies. It is the account of the history of God's people and of a range of individuals, about, let's say, 150 people who were amongst God's people at different times, starting with Adam right through to the last apostles. And almost all of them have many failings. Now, this is quite different to the way teaching is done today, where good examples or good practice is held up as the example to be copied. Instead, God's way is to present us with a lot of people who have a lot of failures. And I wonder why that is. Perhaps it is to point up, to highlight the utter perfection of Jesus. He is the one who is to be our personal hero and pattern. And I think it's also because we too are really very, very weak. But we shall be saved, as they were, by grace. We're not going to stop sinning. We don't go to our grave planks like perfect. We breathe our last breath as sinners, but sinners who are saved by grace. So maybe that's why all these Bible characters are presented as flawed, as weak, as having elements of failure. Not so that we should think that sin and failure don't matter, but as a comfort to us, to we who are weak and imperfect, that those imperfections do not stop you from being God's people.